The stakes could not be higher for 32 proud women as they compete in the inaugural Mae Young Classic. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, remember, it's still a single elimination tournament.
12 women have been eliminated. 12 have advanced to the Sweet 16. Now, the 8 remaining challengers will battle for the final 4 slots in the second round.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
It is now in the books. First round of the WWE Mae Young Classic has concluded. Well, I guess some of you may not have concluded quite yet, but they're all up, available for you to watch on the WWE Network, which I would encourage you to do. Hello, this is Mr. Green, and this is the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. Of course, it's presented by the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. Thank you for tuning in to this. And let me just go and begin right off the bat that this review will contain spoilers. So if you have not watched the Mae Young Classic and you do not want to know what has happened, now's the time for you to move over to some other video or find another podcast or interview or something like that we have, or whatever the case may be, because I certainly don't want to offset your viewing pleasure for the tournament. But this is a spoiler-filled review, so the warning has been placed. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, and before I go into the bulk of the tournament itself, let's get a few things down. If you are looking to support the Women's Pro Wrestling Network, please hit your subscribe and or likes on whatever platform you happen to be on. You are listening to this in MP3 format, then there's a good chance that you are catching us via Podbean or iTunes or TuneIn Radio, Google Play, or something of that nature. And if you are listening to us on either one of those venues, please like and subscribe. That does mean a great deal. If you are on YouTube, same rules apply. The only thing that I would ask you to do, if you have not done it or if you're not subscribed, is make sure that you hit that little bell next to the subscribe button, so that when notifications for any podcasts or any matches and things like that come up, bonus rounds and interviews, etc., you will be notified. All of the things that I'm mentioning to you are, of course, completely free. Doesn't cost you a dime. It will not cost you a dime. So you have a bunch of free, accessible content available to you on all of these platforms. All you have to do is subscribe to get it. So that's about as good an offer that you can get on any platform. It's free. Free is always good. So that's taken care of. And of course, I forgot the social media. For those of you that are following around, you can follow us, WPN Wrestling on Twitter, WPN Wrestling on Instagram, and for YouTube and Facebook, Women's Pro Wrestling Network. To spell it on out, all one word. It should come right on up. And you will be able to see exactly what I'm talking about when I reference the Mae Young Classic, because before it went on the air, I made sure to fill out the brackets from start to finish. I went opening round all the way up to the finals. And I said I was going to stick to it. Within the previous, one of the previous podcasts, I made it clear. I was like, you know what? I'm going to fill this out, and I'm going to put it and I'll post it up online. And actually, it's posted in about 3 or 4 locations. I know it's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, and it's on Facebook. So that I could be held to whatever picks I had. I had no inside information. I wasn't there in attendance. I didn't read or watch any spoilers. So this was all based on who I thought would go from one round to the next. Granted, now some of these I was kind of making picks based on who's likely to sign or who's already signed with the WWE, who already has commitments elsewhere. So that's a lot of what I was kind of putting behind it too. So these are my educated guesses kind of built around that. So if you haven't gone onto Facebook, if you haven't gone on our Instagram, if you haven't gone on our Twitter to see the brackets filled out, you go in there now. You can check it out, see what I got right, see what I got wrong. Well, I'm going to go through some of that anyway, and I will upload the updated brackets. I'm trying to give it some time so I don't spoil anything for the people that's not listening to this and go onto the page and look. So we'll get to that. I have it all highlighted and marked up and marked out and all that good stuff. So it is ready to rock and roll. Speaking of the Mae Young Classic, the tournament, there's a lot of things that need to be kind of addressed as it relates to that tournament. One is I don't know how many of you out there remember this young lady, but Taylor Wilde, otherwise known at the time as Chantel Taylor, she went on her Twitter not too long ago and notified her followers, her fans, that she was contacted by the WWE to participate in the Mae Young Classic, which is good. I mean, which is it's cool to have heard that she was contacted to be a part of it. Unfortunately, she was unable to be in it. She apparently did not pass the physicals, if I remember correctly. That I know she posted her reason that I know somebody contacted me not all that long ago and said that she was contacted but she refused. She did not refuse. That much I am very aware of. It was more along the lines of Taylor Wilde wasn't. I'm trying to say it right because I don't want to make it sound like she's out of shape or anything like that, because she actually is part of the fire department at this point. So she's in good condition, but she did not. She wasn't in condition enough to compete. Let's say that she wasn't in ring shape. Okay, here it is. If you go onto her Twitter page and you scroll down to about July 18th, she does address the situation, and she says that she opted out by choice. She was considered to partake in the Mae Young Classic, but due to an injury she sustained in training, she's going to have to stay in retirement. So there you have it. She was contacted, and she had the opportunity to do it, but unfortunately for her, she, I guess, while trying to get back in shape, back in ring shape, because she hasn't done it in a while. She hasn't wrestled in quite some time, and she was a really good talent. I'm so disappointed that she didn't have the opportunity to kind of step back in the ring and get that one last run, because she deserved more than to have TNA, which we now know is Global Force Wrestling, kind of run her out of the business, which is essentially what happened. She deserved a little bit more than that, but unfortunately, it is what it is, and she's had to take a different path in life. So she's a active and working member of the fire department, and kudos to her for having something else to do, something else to fall back on. She seems very happy with it. But it would have been nice to see her in the tournament, at least in a ring one more time, That'd have been cool. But there it is. So to the young lady that sent me the message saying that Taylor was supposed to be in it and she refused, that's partially true. She was supposed to have been in it. She was at least offered to be in it, but she was injured, and she was, that kind of made her decide that retirement is where she's going to have to stick to. In the first podcast that I did regarding the Mae Young Classic, or at the time it was just the upcoming women's tournament. They didn't have a name when I started this thing up. I said something to the effect that when the WWE finally does it, they are going to blow the Knockouts Knockdown pay-per-views out of the water. Yeah. That's pretty much exactly what happened here. I sat and I watched all 4 episodes of this, and they've done such a masterful job. I mean, which is what we expect them to do. They're the WWE. They're the biggest dogs in town. And we know that they are going to bring their A game to whatever it is that they do. I'm just upset that TNA, Impact Wrestling, Global Force Wrestling, whatever you choose to call them, by this time hasn't been able to do something to kind of bump up the quality of the presentation. I mean, at no point did I watch this being the Mae Young Classic, and did I feel bored. Not like, when I look at the Knockouts Knockdown, when I got to get through the first 20 minutes of them introducing everybody. What's your name, where you from, and all that stuff. In the Mae Young Classic, they had these nice video packages. They had you be introduced to them. They told the stories in the ring. I mean, it was very well done. In much the same way that you had the Cruiserweight Classic. The matches were cold, but they did what wrestlers do. And there lies the difference. You didn't have any sports entertainment stuff tossed in there. You know that's got to drive Kevin Dunn crazy, because I am fully of the belief that guy cannot possibly believe that wrestling will work if it's just wrestling. It's got to have some story. It's got to have something else to it. The girl's got to be in mud, or the matches shouldn't be this long. They should only be 30 seconds, or whatever the case would be. So I can only imagine that he couldn't stomach any of this. But that's neither here nor there. The point being is that all of these ladies went out there in cold matches, and just between what they did in the ring, just between what they had on the video packages, arguably showing I assume in the arena, or at Full Sail, we'll call it, because it's not a true arena. But between those things, they got the point across. They got the point across of who you should be cheering, who should be booing, and the crowd was educated. That's the other thing they got going for them. Getting back to the knockouts thing, the crowd there at Full Sail is educated, and it made those matches feel that much more exciting. You look at a knockouts tournament, the matches are good. The crowd sucks. The crowd is terrible at Universal. And they drag their product down. I just need to say this before I go off into the spoils of the tournament. But that crowd at Universal drags that product down. They make it suck so bad. They suck the life out of it. I mean, even when they got great matches going on in the ring, and I've seen every knockouts knockdown pay-per-view that they provided. But a lot of times, those people are just sitting out there, sitting on their hands, just watching what's going on in the ring. They don't know those people. They don't care. They're not cheering. Here was the polar opposite. That crowd was educated. They knew who most of these people were. And the ones that they didn't know were at least given the opportunity to win them over in what they were able to do in the ring. And we'll talk about some of those as we go on. So, anyway, episode 1, which technically premiered after Monday Night Raw, I was concerned that they wouldn't drop all of it, because they made it look like, well, they weren't going to drop them until the premiere actually happened, which thankfully I was wrong about. It was after 11 o'clock, after Monday Night Raw went off, they dropped all episodes of the Mae Young Classic. So if you go on the WWE Network right now, and I'm sure somebody's probably trying to upload it onto YouTube, good luck with that. They have all 4 episodes for you to look at. I looked at them all back to back to back. Very much like a lengthy pay-per-view night for me. And let's go through the first ones. And first, my brackets, out of the matches listed, I got one wrong. One. And I'm happy to have that one wrong because the girl that won, I actually was, she really impressed me when she did it. So I'll get to that in a minute. All right, so here we go. Episode 1, Princess Sergey. She won by submission over Kaylee Ray, which is a little bit of a surprise, but I just didn't see Sergey losing. Her being the veteran, I think she's been doing this thing for like 15 years or so by now. So we had a couple of vets walk in there and show their stuff in the ring, which was great. Glad that they all got their chance. She won. Like I said, she tapped out. She tapped out Kaylee Ray with the armbar submission. It's like her version of Fujiwara armbar. Serena Deeb, who went in as the sentimental favorite, and I know there was a couple of people that made comments like, oh, well, she is the WWE veteran that's coming back. And that's basically the story that they're laying up to her. But, like I said, and I know I described this at some point, I'll reiterate. The only reason that I didn't give her that kind of credit is because her in-ring career didn't really mirror the WWE. It was mostly OVW, it was FCW, then it was in the independents. But the storyline there is that Deeb is the sentimental favorite. She's coming back for redemption because she blew her opportunity because of drinking, the problems that she had when she was on the WWE main roster, which ironically when she was part of the Straight Edge Society, so that wouldn't work. So they played her up, and she went against Vanessa Bourne first round. Vanessa Bourne came in, and she was the clear heel in this thing. She did her job, and she made that audience know who she was. And she put up a really good match, as most of these are. But it was Deeb that won ultimately via a spear. Very well executed, put her down, and got the 3 count. The Queen of Spades, Shayna Baszler, she came out. And Baszler has like a double support system here. Well, one on the outside, one on the end. Her trifecta teammates are all involved in the tournament, those members being Mercedes Martinez and Nicole Savoy. So you got the Latina Sensation, you got the Queen of Suplexes, you got the Queen of Spades, all competing in the same tournament at the same time, although they are bracketed off in separate lots. Although technically Savoy does have the opportunity to come up against Baszler if she is able to win and advance, as Baszler did advance over Zeta. Both of these ladies came in with a pronounced MMA background. They kind of illustrated that point. And the ladies, when they got into the ring, exercised that. They were going for submissions and locks, and it was a very methodical match, but it was still a fun match. Like, they didn't lose the crowd by doing any of the stuff that they were doing. And that crowd was solidly behind Baszler. It was well, she had big support from that crowd. And speaking of the support, I forgot to mention that the 4 horsewomen of MMA, they were out there also. So she had her outside support too, Rousey and the girls, Jasmine Duke, and I forget the other one right now, so I apologize. but yeah, all 3 of them were there on front row. The 4th one being Baszler, she was in the ring, and she won via a tap out over Zeta. I think it was a rear naked choke with the body scissors, if I remember right. So she taps her out and advances to the second round. Abby Lath, who we knew as Princess Kimberly, in some circles she was the princess, but we knew her as Kimberly once upon a time. Now she's Abby Lath. And she had the mountain of a task to overcome with Jazzy Gabert, who we once knew as the alpha female. And she was a monster in this ring. The alpha female actually brought that crowd to their feet. This match was the first match that was shown on TV. I mean, I don't know if they edited the actual live tournament, but it was the first match that was shown that got that crowd hyped up. Like, Jazzy was tossing Abby around like it was nobody's business. And the story there became really clear, really quick, that this is the David and Goliath match. And if Abby's going to win, she's going to have to pull something out of somewhere, out the blue, and get that victory. She was breaking out the kicks. She was breaking out the strikes. She was doing all that stuff. But at the same time, you had Jazzy Gabert, who was delivering on all fronts. I mean, she got off in the corner at one point. She was delivering like rapid palm strikes, and that hyped that crowd right on up. But ultimately, it was the alligator clutch by Abby Lath that scored the victory. And it was almost like Ring of Honor rules, man. You know, even when people came in and didn't want to do the handshake and whatnot and lost, Jazzy came over to her. Despite being aggressive and beating her up in the match and all that stuff, after she lost, because it was a pin out of nowhere, or relatively, but she gave her respect. She shook her hand, raised her hand for the audience and whatnot, and that crowd went bananas. They enjoyed every minute of that, as did I. And like I said, that was the first match that really brought that crowd up to their feet. So I thought they did a really good job in that match. So that was the first episode. And Abby Lair versus Jazzy Gabert was the main event of episode 1. So we moved over to episode 2 because, you know, the WWE Network, when you're on a series, they'll just let the thing run. And that's what I did. I let it run. So episode 2 opened up with one of the people that I had a vested interest in, and one of the ladies that I really wanted to see. And if you've been listening to me for any time, you know who I'm talking about. The Latina sensation, Mercedes Martinez. Although her opponent, Zia Lee, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Zaya, I think it's Zia Lee. She did impress me in this match. It was the first time I had the opportunity to see her. I don't think that she has wrestled anywhere prior to this. So it was interesting to see how she was going to do it, and it was interesting to see how Mercedes was going to treat her. And Mercedes walked in, I guess technically as the cocky heel here, because she didn't give her any kind of play. She just made it seem and look like this is beneath me, and you know I'm going to tear you apart, you know, just piece by piece. But of course, Zaya, she did give Mercedes a run for her money at some point. She started catching her with big strikes, big kicks. Very attractive young lady. That's neither here nor there, but just wanted to point that out. Zaya did do some impressive stuff. I would like to see her in the future. Hopefully she will make an appearance in NXT as they are rebuilding their women's division. But it was ultimately the Dragon Sleeper applied by Mercedes Martinez that put her out. Zaya had to tap. So there we go. Mercedes advances second round. One of the better matches was Rachel Evers taking on Marty Bell. Now, in this match, true, I did have Evers for the win, but during the course of the match, I will admit to you that I thought I had picked wrong. I was looking at this, I was like, oh no, man, I think Marty's gonna take this. I was really thinking, I was like, okay, this is the one. I got my wrong pick in here, but nope. It was a surprise win and essentially regarded as an upset win. Rachel Evers, second-generation girl, the daughter of Hall of Famer Precious Paul Ellering, scored the win with a small package and eliminated Marty Bell. So, yes, even though, and you can verify it, go onto the Facebook page and look, even though I picked Evers to win, I was surprised that Evers won. So, I mean, yay for me. I was at this point in the game, I was up like 6-0 as far as my picks was concerned. Moving on, Rhea Ripley took on Miranda Salinas, which I have very limited knowledge of Ripley. Salinas I was aware of because of Reality of Wrestling, and if you haven't gone on to YouTube, you can find Reality of Wrestling and you can see some of her matches at that promotion, which of course they had acknowledged. Well, they didn't acknowledge the promotion, but they acknowledged that she's a trainee of Booker T. And that was essentially what she was riding on within the course of this tournament. Is that, you know, she was trained by a Hall of Famer, and she was going to do whatever she had to do to win. Doesn't matter that I'm short. But Ripley, who comes in off of a soccer background, certainly was using her height and those high kicks to I don't want to say level out the playing field, because it actually looked like it was all in her favor. And somehow, I mean, she had that crowd way on her side. I mean, they were doing the oi 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 chants, you know, because of course she's from Australia. So I mean, I'm assuming that she has some people that came in town, and they or even that, or they were just giving her some proper respect, and they gave it to her. She delivered the goods after catching Miranda a couple of times with a kick or two across the head. She put her away with a full Nelson slam and got the 3 count. So Ripley advances to the second round. Mae Young went into the ring against who we formerly knew as Crazy Mary Dobson, which is really funny to me that Crazy Mary Dobson has morphed into like this kind of backwoods Sarah Logan persona. I mean, you know, and I'm not saying all the stuff that she was saying on the in the tournament video packages was incorrect. I'm certainly not going to deny where her background is. I mean, that all could be legitimately true, that she was raised in the backwoods, and you know, she fought goats and all this other stuff that they was talking about in there. But they played it up, and it's just interesting to see the change of character from what she was to what she is now. But this is the main event of episode 2, Mae Young and Sarah Logan, and which is easily the best Sarah Logan match so far. I'm not going to say the best Crazy Mary Dobson match, but the best Sarah Logan match so far that we've seen in WWE TV land. But it was Mae Young that ultimately scored the win as she popped her with Eat Defeat, which I'm going to assume is a little bit of a homage, if you will, to Gail Kim. They actually brought up Gail Kim's name in the tournament. They said they credited Gail Kim as being one of the inspirations for Mae Young. So that was a little bit surprising and refreshing that they wouldn't be so petty to like, no, we're not going to bring her up because she works for the opposition. So they actually did bring it up, and Mae Young did use Gail Kim's kind of vaulted finish, the Eat Defeat, and scored the victory over Logan. And we move over into episode 3. So now by the time episode 3 comes down, I am 8-0 for all guesses just pertaining to who's going to advance and who did not. So I was looking pretty good at this point. I was feeling good about it too. All right, so we start off episode 3 with Toni Storm over Aisha Raymond. I had heard of Toni Storm. I'd never seen Aisha Raymond at all. And again, this is another case of my knowledge about them individually as far as ring work is concerned was a little limited, but I knew enough about Toni Storm to say that, okay, I'm going to make a pick on her. Although Aisha Raymond did put her through the paces in that match. In fact, I would say she was probably the bigger and the stronger of the two, and they played it up that way. And the loss that Raymond had, because she did lose, was arguably kept her strong in the ring. So you have the match going on, and towards the end, Raymond gets the advantage and puts Toni Storm down. And she goes up to one corner to get ready to come off for assumably a splash off the top rope. But as she's doing that, she turns to the fans who are booing her and giving her lip. And she gets down and she goes walking across the ring and she starts jawing with the fans. And she, you see her on the hard camera telling them what she thinks about them. And then she decides, okay, now it's time for me to go to the top rope and do this thing. But by that time, of course, it's too late. You know, she had gone up once. She came down. She started talking to fans. She decided to go up again. But the timing had passed, and she flies off with a splash. It hits nothing but the mat after being distracted. And what do we have after that is a distraction roll-up by Toni Storm for the win. So it wasn't overly maybe impressive isn't the word that I should be looking for, but it wasn't an overly domineering win for Toni Storm. I was expecting her to dominate it, but she didn't do that. Like I said, she won, but it seems as if they did what they could to keep Raymond strong. So there's the arguable point that if she had not gotten distracted, if she had not gone over there and started yelling at the fans, if she had not lost focus, that she could have continued on and won, but she didn't do that. So Toni Storm advances to the next round. One of the surprising matches, speaking of people that remained strong in victory, we got Dakota Kai versus Kavita Devi. And Dakota Kai walks in as the clear veteran there in this match and the most well-known of the two. But she barely survived this. Debbie was just she was showing all kinds of power over Kai in this match. I mean, she was tossing her around. She gorilla pressed her. She was showing the biceps to the audience. And not for nothing, when she walked in there, nobody knew who she was or kind of how to take her. But it was I can't say a career-making match, but that match made her. And if you didn't know who she was prior to that, you knew who she was by the end. She illustrated a great deal of leverage and power and strength over Kai throughout this match. But ultimately, it was the mistake. It was that one opening that Dakota Kai was able to take advantage of. Debbie charges in, goes into the turnbuckle. Kai was able to move out the way. She runs across the ring, gets full momentum, and charges in with a big boot right across the face, which puts Debbie down. And then quickly, as quick as she could, she goes up to the top rope and comes off with that coup de grace, the same way that Finn Balor does, and that double stomp right across the chest puts her down for the 3 count, and Dakota Kai advances. She moves on. The third match is the first match and the only match that I predicted wrong. Bianca Belair took on Sage Beckett, who is the former Andrea, who is also the former Rosie Lotta Love, which is the former Betsy Ruth. So this is the fourth incarnation of this young lady that I have seen. If you need to get more information, or you want to get more information about it, go into our archives. There's an interview that I have with her. She's listed as being interviewed as Andrea. That's who she was at the time. But within that interview, she told me, we had a conversation about her background as we talked about her characters that she's portrayed. And she said to me right then, it's like, I would like WWE to know, or any promotion know, that I could portray whatever it is that I need to portray. Now, clearly that's the case because she has a background in theater. She's already gone through some huge differences in one personality to the next, which I told her then, which was Betsy Ruth. There's nothing similar about Betsy Ruth to Rosie Lotta Love. There's nothing similar about Rosie Lotta Love to Andrea. And her physical transformation is just amazing. But ultimately, she came out and they showed who she was, and she's doing this shaman gimmick. Like she's like almost, I wouldn't go so far as say full blown mysticism, but basically that's what she's putting out there. And on just at first sight, you would have said that this match should be a mismatch because Becky is so much bigger and looks so much stronger. But Belair proved that to be not the case as she walked in, and even though she was smaller, she did not back up. She was talking about she is the EST, which means that, she's the biggest, she's the baddest, she's the strongest, she's the fastest. And she kind of lived up to that. I mean, and she surprised that audience when Beckett came charging at her out of the corner looking for a clothesline. Belair beat her to the punch and just wrapped her arm around her throat with a huge clothesline, took her off her feet. I don't think anybody, including me, was expecting that she would be able to stand relatively toe-to-toe with her in this in that environment. And she kept going. She fought back. I mean, it was a very, very competitive match. Certainly worth watching. It was very entertaining. But at the end, when Becca was looking at, and she was coming off as being desperate and surprised that she didn't get that win, and I was surprised that she didn't get the win because she hit the move that had been her finish on the Indies for a long period of time, that being that single leg kind of missile drop kick. She nailed her with that, but it wasn't enough to put Belair down. As later, or at the close of the match, she got her into the corner, but Belair comes back off, and she said earlier that her hair is a weapon, and she did use it as a weapon. She popped her across the chest like a whip with that ponytail, that super long ponytail that she's sporting. And then she hit an explosive spear and got the pin. Belair, who didn't walk in with a lot of fanfare into this tournament, it wasn't a lot of, not a lot about her on the Indies, but she won that crowd over. And I picked wrong in that match, and I'm happy to say that I picked wrong. I'm glad to see Belair go to the next round. She was advertised as an athlete. They went into her background, and she works like an athlete. She looks like it. She was great. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing her in her next round matchup because she's got a tall task ahead of her, which I will get to later. The main event of episode 3 was Piper Niven, the former Viper, taking on Santana Garrett, who walked into this tournament. I think I said this before. She walks in as the WOW Women's Champion. Now, of course, that isn't acknowledged, but she is technically a champion for another organization. And I know that there's one guy out there that doesn't like hearing that, if nothing else, because he's convinced that the WWE is going out of their way to job people. I don't think that that's necessarily the case, and you got to give these ladies some credit. A lot of them really, really, really want to be there. So, we got to let them have their moment in the sun. You know what I mean? But anyway, Piper, this is maybe like the third or fourth time that I've had a chance to see her work, and she is as good as I remember seeing her. As is Santana Garrett. I think Garrett who has really grown over the last year or so. And if nothing else, her resume of championships proves that. She's been the NWA Women's Champion. She's been the Shine Champion. I said she's the current WOW Champion. Of course, a bunch of other regional titles that she has underneath her belt. So she's won quite a bit. And the match was probably a little bit more even than I guess most people would have expected. I think Piper Niven would have been perceived as the domineering force here in much the same way I would have perceived Sage Beckett, but in neither case did that really happen. Although the advantage of size does come into play, it wasn't played up throughout the entirety of the match. And speaking of that, I understand that there have been some fans that kind of went online on the WWE Facebook page and kind of been fat shaming Piper Niven. And that's really disappointing that you would have people that would go through that and kind of more or less bully this young girl online over her size. Look, no, she's not the smallest girl in the tournament, and I think that everybody's aware of that, but she clearly is good at what she does. Her size has not been a hindrance. If anything, I would say it's probably been an attribute for her because you can look at her and say, man, that's different. That is different right there. For her to be able to do the things that she's doing at that size is amazing. And that's essentially what she brought to the table. She brought an amazing skill set and athleticism, regardless how big or small she happens to be. And, and it doesn't bother me in the least. I mean, I come from the era where wrestling was a lot less cosmetic. And some of you out there know what I'm talking about. I mean, just think about some of the people that they weren't all bodybuilders and stuff like that. I mean, I come from the era of the King Kong Bundys and, the Big John Studs and Vaders and, the people like that. Well, they weren't necessarily, Bam Bam Bigelow, they weren't necessarily small, but they were able to get it done in the ring. And a side note, Piper Niven looks better than, she's way more attractive than anybody that I just named. So I absolutely have no problem with her. And I will continue to follow her. I think she's a great talent. But anyway, getting back to it, they were the main event of episode 3. And in the end, it was Piper Niven who defeated Santana Garrett. Santana tried to go for her finish, which is that kind of, it's not really a springboard, but a handstand into a rebounding moonsault off of the ropes. But Niven was able to get out of the way of that and catch her with a sit-out Michinoku driver, and that was the end of Santana Garrett. That sent her home, even though she leaves with the championship. Again, that wasn't really acknowledged, so I'm just saying that to say that she didn't really lose all that much. But now that I think about it, there's a couple of other people that walked into the tournament with championships. Mercedes Martinez being the other. I didn't bring it up before. She is still the reigning WSU Women's Champion, and I believe she is still the reigning Shimmer Champion, which all of the B-roll provided to this tournament for the ladies that have no WWE prior experience essentially came from Shimmer. So if they wrestled in Shimmer, they had some matches provided where you can see what they did ahead of time, which only goes to show that the matches that we're watching, as exciting as they were, and all of these matches were really good matches. They, a few lags aside with one person here and there, but that aside, the matches were good. They were entertaining. But I will say, and go on record to saying that seeing this quality of match from the ladies is not anything new for me. And I would go so far to guess that is probably not new for most of you guys either, because these are the norm on the independents. These matches that take place in the Mae Young Classic, these things happen all the time on the independent circuit. These are matches that we're used to watching. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have gone to the Mae Young Classic. I'm glad that they went, and I'm glad that a lot of them are getting the opportunity to show what they got to a much bigger, much broader audience. I mean, Sergey, D, Baszler, Lath, Martinez, Evers, Ripley, Yim, all of them deserve is probably a better word. Deserve to get on a high stage at least one time in their career. And they've got a chance to do that. This is that time. This is the place that they get to do it, and I'm glad to see that they're getting that done. So we come down to episode 4, which is the final episode of the first round. And again, at this point, I've only picked one wrong, so I was pretty well pleased with myself at this stage of the game. I said, if I got this far and I only got one of them wrong, then I've made some good picks. But I had 4 more to go. I wasn't really all that concerned with it, but I had 4 more to go. So here we go. Episode 4, they opened it up with Candice LeRae, Miss Wrestling. As she's now, as she's the wife of Johnny Gargano, and they did acknowledge that in the video package. She defeats Renee Michelle, who we see on the independent circuit quite a bit. But she did not go over, that being Renee. She went down to Candice LeRae with Candice LeRae's Wild Ride, a neck breaker off of the second rope. So she put Renee down, and she will advance to the second round. Lacey Evans, who I've talked about a couple of times here, who was the former Ruby Mobs on the Georgia South Independent Circuit. So a lot of people did not get to see her prior to this, and me included. I really didn't get to see a lot of them. A lot of her matches preceding this. I may have saw her wrestle as Ruby Mobs 2 or 3 times online. And all due respect to her, neither of those matches were overly impressive. But as I said previously in a different podcast, the thing that's going to be pushing her is she is the other sentimental favorite. She's the other girl that's in there that, hey, this is all I've been wanting to do, and I've sacrificed myself. I'm not at home being the mom that I could be because I've been dedicating myself to the ring and this, that, and the other. So it was interesting to see her come in there. I wasn't necessarily expecting. Well, I can't say that. Let me rephrase that. I picked Evans to win, but there was a point in there, much like what I said earlier with Marty Bell. There was a point in that match where I was like, "Ooh, I think I might have picked wrong," but she scored. Lacey Evans got the pin. She pinned Tainara Conti with the reverse pile driver roll up. So she popped her, went for the pin, and she advances. So we got 2 sentimental favorites that's kind of moving in. Savoy, the queen of suplexes. She went in against Rena Gonzalez, who was surprisingly good. I had not seen Gonzalez at all, but and I was really expecting Savoy just kind of cut through her, which did not happen. So you got Gonzalez, and she pretty much dominated this match. She had her essentially on the ropes from the get-go, but it was the submission victory by Savoy that got her through. She was advertised as the queen of suplexes, but she never got the opportunity to toss those suplexes because Gonzalez was all over her, and she was showing the size and strength and leverage advantage throughout the majority of this match. But it was once Savoy was able to get her down on her back and hyperextend the arm where she got that tap-out submission. So Gonzalez is eliminated. Savoy moves on to the second round. And then we got the main event of the show, episode 4. And I would go so far to say this, not just the main event of episode 4, but it was the main event of the entirety of the first round. Kairi Sane took on Tessa Blanchard in the first round matchup, and I will echo the sentiments that both JR and Lita kind of put out there during the commentary, that match, which is a high-profile match, and it's a shame that one of them had to be defeated. And I fully agree with that. Had they been separated, had it been Zayn with somebody else or Blanchard with somebody else, it's very likely that I would have said Zayn and Blanchard would both win and over their particular opponents. But in this case, it was Blanchard versus Zayn, and only one of them was going to go. And, man, it made for a great match. It was very entertaining. Like I said, I think it was the main event of the entire first round. And Tessa, what can you say? She's a Blanchard. She got a little aggressive in there. But in the end, Kairi Sane move, hold and counter hold between the two of them. It ultimately came down to Zayn popping Blanchard off in the corner and setting her up for her fabled elbow drop from the top rope. And that elbow drop connected full force, and it put Blanchard out, and she was done with a 1, 2, 3. Blanchard eliminated. Kairi Sane, the Pirate Princess, advances on. So that is the entirety of the first round of the Mae Young Classic. So where are you in terms of your picks? Who did you get? Who did you get right? Who did you get wrong? How many of these people did you know were going to go to the second round? How many did you just screw up on altogether? And we got some interesting matches going into the next set. Got Abby Leith facing off against Rachel Evers, Princess Sergey, to go against Mercedes Martinez. Nicole Savoy to go against Candice LeRae. Mia Yim will take on Shayna Baszler. Kairi Sane will take on Bianca Belair, and I am really looking forward to that match. I think it's going to be a sleeper match. Dakota Kai will be taking on Rhea Ripley in the next round. Serena Deeb, the sentimental favorite, will be going against Piper Niven, second round. And it will be Lacey Evans, sentimental favorite number 2, taking on Toni Storm. My predictions or my picks are already in. Again, if you are looking to see what and who those are, I would suggest that you visit me on one of the 3 platforms, that being Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. The post of my bracketology for the Mae Young Classic is there and is ready to be seen for everybody to know that I am not backing down on my predictions, regardless to how I may feel during the course of the match, because some of those matches did put me at the edge of my seat. I was like, I'm finna lose. But nope. With the exception of Bianca Belair over Sage Beckett, I did pretty freaking good. I have to say. So it was 1 out of 11. So I was 11-1 with my picks first round. I think if this was something I could have bet on in Vegas, I'd have cleaned up right now. Oh, well. I guess pro wrestling isn't the best thing to be betting on. So anyway, that is it. That is the entirety of the first round of the Mae Young Classic. I thought it'd just be easier to do the first round opposed to breaking this down and going episode by episode. And it's like, that's just too much. Too much to be trying to pull up an entire episode for each episode of the Classic. So we'll just do it all at one time, since I watched it all at one time. So there we go. Reminders. Go on and check out the channel for YouTube. Subscribe. Make sure you click the bell to get your notifications. If you are a MP3 listener, and I can only imagine that some of you are, because I like listening to mine in the car, go on to podbean.com or iTunes or Google Play or TuneIn Radio, and you find WPN. If you click WPN in the search, it will come up, and you will have the opportunity to listen to all this great free content. All you got to do is subscribe. Make sure you click the buttons to let people know, or I should say let people know, but let the system know that you are a subscriber, and that which in turn will let me know that I have your support, and your support is very necessary. Again, it keeps small entities such as the WPN alive. You know, when you're the WWE, you can lose 5, 10, 50, 50 or 100 fans, but they still got a gang of them more around the world that are going to support it no matter what. So the loss for them, for a big company, for a big corporation, means nothing. For independent, losing 1 or 2 people means everything. So that's why I say that all this stuff accounts for a lot. It means a lot to anybody that's decided to support by liking or sharing the videos. I truly mean it, that I appreciate it. And anybody that's done a step further than that and dropped $1 or $2 for the support of the show or the shows, because there's several of them under the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you've done that, then I really, really, really appreciate you without any ends, because like I said, when you're indie, it gets tough, man. It gets tough just to maintain that. It's a real hard gig to do. Okay, so that's that. The Mae Young Classic first round is at a conclusion, and I will be looking to see round 2 when it drops next week. So hopefully you guys will be able to join me, and hopefully you would have caught up with all that stuff, and we'll be able to go through some of these brackets together. Again, I know some of you have sent me the names of people that you think are going to win, but what I really want to see is the brackets. I want to see your brackets. I want to see people pick from start to finish. I guess I can't really ask for that now, so I'm going to ask from second round on up. If you know who you got, if you know who you want, if you know who you think is going to win from the second round on up to the finals, go ahead and fill those brackets out. It'll be great. And like I said, I can tell you proof positive because I already done it. It will put some extra stake into your viewing pleasure because you're going to be pulling for the person that you picked. So that'll be that. All right, that's it, folks. Thank you for tuning in to another podcast. Be sure to find us on all our platforms and social media. Check out our videos, whether it be interviews or podcast interviews or wrestling matches or what have you. Just make sure that you watch it. And that will help keep everything moving forward. So with that, and until the next Mae Young Classic, you guys take it easy and we'll catch you on the next go-round.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support.